Greetings, sci-fi universe, sci-fiction universe. My name is Owen C. Cotter. You're watching SciFiction digital simulcasting on Facebook, Twitch, X, used to be Twitter, and YouTube. Today, in a little bit, about 15 minutes or so, we're going to have an amazing guest. Her name is Eileen Collins, NASA astronaut and Air Force Colonel. Let her tell her about her amazing life. She's done some amazing things that have inspired a great deal of people, including women in space exploration. Before she joins us, we just got back on Sunday from the Saturn Awards, the 53rd anniversary Science Fiction Fantasy Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. Absolutely amazing event. Got to speak to so many great people involved in the creation of all these amazing science fiction properties, television and movies, and anime, and all kind of beyond. We got to talk to James Cameron. There's a lot of stuff on there. We're going to be pumping out all kinds of content coming to you over the next week or so. We got a lot of goodies, lots of goodies. So stay tuned, fans. Before she joins us, I want to go over some stuff here, a little bit of the nuggets of things we've published so far. Got a lot of goodies here, everybody. This is Facebook. Of course, you're probably familiar with that. If you're following us on Facebook, if not, please follow us on YouTube as well. We're also on pretty much every social media channel, and our website is SciFiction.com. Some pics. So we did a lot of interviews. We're interviewing Brent Spiner, Data from TNG. Here's one with me, Isaiah Morales. He's the bad guy in Mission Impossible, I believe, Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning. That's a pretty cool. He's a super cool guy. Here's me and Rod Roddenberry and Trevor, his business partner at the Saturn Awards, doing the Vulcan goodness for us Trek fans, awesomeness. There's me and Samba from Pluribus, super cool guy. He's just amazing to talk to. And there's me with Brent Spiner again. There's a lot of stuff going on here with the Saturns. We got a lot of content we got from that. We're going to be doing some other special projects that involve filmmaking coming up over this next month or so. So stay tuned for that. Can't really talk about that. It's top secret, but it will soon be revealed probably in May, around the time of my birthday. There's Katie Sackhoff, talking with her about Star Wars and all the goodies she's done in sci-fi. There's me and Jonathan Frakes, the man, the myth, the legend, director Riker from TNG and Picard Season 3 and all the seasons. Some other good stuff. Tom Cruise got him a Saturn Award. We took these pics of Tom there at the event. It's just on and on. We've got more pictures we'll be launching soon this week as well as videos and audios and all kind of other goodies. Today's guest, though, is none other than Eileen Collins, NASA astronaut, Air Force Colonel. She has a brand new film, which she'll let her talk about, called Space Woman. It's about her life, her career in aviation and space exploration, and we'll let that float there for a little bit. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot of things that we're working on. It's beyond just sci-fiction. There's maybe some documentary projects, some stuff dealing with video games, comic books, a whole plethora and gauntlet of things. If you've been following the site, you've probably been seeing articles related to projects I'm involved with. My client and good friend, Chris McCauley. He's an author and a writer and an amazing individual. He's worked on a lot of stuff. He's a major contributor to the Doctor Who universe. He's worked with, Star Trek, Star Wars a little bit there, video games, everything. Created the Stokerverse with Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew, Dr. Stoker. There's a new project we're working on. It's a pro-military, supports military veterans, and it's just a super cool kind of early, near 2 to 5 years in the future military sci-fi. We're calling it Ghost Protocol, so stay tuned for that. Actually got to talk recently on camera for an Amazon Prime series with Shiloh Harris, military hero and veteran, about this project, as well as just geeking out about sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, you name it, pop art, pop culture goodness. But there's all kind of stuff going on right now in the world of pop culture and sci-fi. People just joining us, my name is Owen C. Cotter, and you're watching SciFiction digitally simulcasting on probably every channel we have next, except for TikTok, because that's not allowed. We've got Facebook on here. If you're not following us or been to the site, go to SciFiction.com. That's this big banner right behind me with all the social links. You got Facebook, you got X, you got TikTok, YouTube, just about every single station you can get on there on the social grid. We want to thank you, the fans, for following us and all of our pages. I believe this last month or so, let's see. Yeah, we've gotten about another 10,000 subscribers through the network. So thank you, the fans, for that. We appreciate that. We love bringing you quality content. I don't know if we're going to be doing WonderCon. We're waiting to hear back on some things. Supposedly we were approved, so we'll see if we get that. Reason we may not go is there's a film project we may be involved with, which we are involved with. So we have to maybe do that instead. We're also invited to some other award ceremonies. We may do that. Not sure. Waiting to hear back from them. And also just in general, this film project is very important, which we can't talk about much, but it involves some sci-fi and pop culture as well as other things, literature too. So stay tuned. We will be coming to you late May or early June, rather, mid-June, from an amazing event put on a good friend of mine, Michael Havens, called ICCC, the Imperial Commissary Collectors Convention. Heavy in sci-fi, heavy in collecting, heavy in Star Wars, heavy in everything pop culture. We'll be coming to you from that all weekend long there. July, there's an event that we're working on with the Film Commission in San Diego. Our good friend Tony Anthony's going to be down there, probably doing some presentations. I'll be there with some of our good friends in sci-fi, so stay tuned for that. And then a week later, San Diego Comic-Con, which we love San Diego Comic-Con, so we'll be there from that. And August, the 60th anniversary STLV 60 in Las Vegas, Nevada, celebrating 60 years of Star Trek. So that's what we've got coming up next. And all kind of stuff in between, and ups and downs and rights and lefts and beyond and beyond and beyond. Let's go to the chat here. Woohoo, SciFiction. Aaron says SciFiction, woohoo. Thank you, Aaron. We appreciate your support for the SciFiction channel. We love the, yes, we do. Thank you so much, man. See, we got comments coming in here. We have a lot of questions. People submitted questions. I've got some questions of my own, including the documentary Space Woman that Eileen will be presenting today. Eileen will be joining us here in about 10 minutes. For people that do not know who she is or may know who she is, she's done a lot of stuff in space. She was the first woman pilot and shuttle pilot and commander of a space shuttle for NASA. I believe she went up there and docked with the Mir space station and helped launch the Hubble Space Telescope. So that's pretty important stuff in the world of space and futurism, which relates to science fiction in general, because, fiction then mirrors itself through the lens of science fiction to reality and beyond. So that's really, really impressive. So I'm very honored and very touched to be able to talk to her today on this broadcast. It's going to be amazing. We've got a lot of stuff coming to you here soon. We have been working and accelerating at warp 9.9. I don't know if that's faster than a Sovereign class starship or a Galaxy. I think it's faster, pretty fast. I don't know if Voyager may top those speeds, but yeah, it's a pretty fast operation. We're getting ready to do a lot of content. It's going to be just a wild roller coaster ride. And from 2026 to 2027, 8, 9, we've got stuff coming on the board is almost to the end of 2027. We've mapped out. It's beyond events. It deals with a lot of stuff. You name it, we're doing it. My name is Owen C. Cotter. Just joining us. We will be bringing Eileen on here shortly. There's so much cool stuff in sci-fi. I mean, we just watched, well, first off, the Saturn Awards. Let's talk a little bit about that for a few minutes. I mean, it was like who's who of everybody in science fiction and pop culture, from the Tron Ares, VFX makeup artist, from that to Pluribus. That is my little dog, to Chiquito. Let him out real quick. You'll love this guy. He's my little buddy. Hold on just a second, everybody. Come on, rascal. Come on, man. He's coming up. He's roller coasting in. He was barking a lot earlier, so if you hear him barking, that's the little dog. He's a toy cup Pomeranian. He gets excited. And my wife is actually right now out and about doing some appointments and some meetings for us, so stay tuned on that. If you hear him barking, that's him. He's a little buddy. He's over there just chilling. We've got another little dog we adopted named Tinkerbell, a.k.a. just Tinkerbell. She was a foster, and she just was dropped off here, and then we just adopted her. And we got the cat Scotty, like the engineer from Scotty and Star Trek. Yeah, right? So he's there as well, resting us. Got all kind of liquids here to hydrate, juice, some coffee. We're rocking and rolling on all thrusters. We have been going through a lot of events. We may have to clean the slate for a couple of weeks to get a film project done, which is very important to me, because not only does it deal with pop culture and sci-fi, it's a very inspiring project that deals with a lot of stuff that I think it will inspire people across all walks of life. But we'll tell you more about that probably in early May. So stay tuned on the channels for that. If you have not noticed, we've been doing a lot of stuff promoting various video games like Dracula Dark Reign, the Ghost Protocol franchise, the new fantasy project. Del Barris came on board with us, and Dr. Chris McCauley to work on that. It's kind of got like the Conan the Barbarian meets like fantasy and dragons and all kind of cool stuff. There's so much on the board right now. It's unbelievable. Eileen will be joining us here with the next 5 minutes or so stay tuned for that. It's going to be an absolutely wild roller coaster ride of space exploration, pop culture, possibly sci-fi, and more. For people joining us, my name is Owen C. Cotter. We are on SciFiction, digitally simulcasting on every single channel that we're allowed to simulcast on this network. Let's see something here. We've got, jumping in the site real quick. Replace. All these new, so they got this new software here. They've really blinged it out too. It's quite impressive, the new system. I like it. It's just so overloaded with content and different things here. Let's see something right quick. There you go. Here's SciFiction.com, your hub of sci-fi pop culture goodness. We've got a lot of news items on here. We're going to be replacing this video here with the new Saturn Awards montage of all the pop culture goodies. Got a lot of news. Like The Boys' last final season, the schedule's been revealed. It's a new sci-fi game entering the chaos of Sprawl Zero. The Omicide arrives in Tech Marine Update 12.0 now live. The Absolute Batman universe is unleashed. Absolute Archer, and I believe Absolute Catwoman. This is an article I want to show you real quick. This is Star Trek Explorer magazine did a article. Well, we did an article on this article. It's a short story that Chris wrote with Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in Star Trek, him right there. And it takes place in between Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3. There's Chris. This is the Explorer magazine, that the short story from Explorer. And it kind of deals with after Spock. Of course, he came back and searched for Spock. But after that, he was kind of mentoring Chekhov to be like a science officer and kind of that. And it's from Chekhov's perspective, dealing with the loss of Spock and having to take over, dealing with a lot of stuff in that juncture point. It's the emotional wreckage after the Wrath of Khan. It describes it as an adventure following the aftermath of Wrath of Khan, and the exotic self-state situates Chekhov in the shadow of Spock's sacrifice. The Enterprise's damage as it limps towards space dock. That's a smart, gutsy spot to run in because it demands restraint. The explosions and tactics still not sure, but what defines it is grief. So it's a very compelling story. That's Trek's when it's operating at its best, competence under pressure, yes, but also moral and emotional reckoning. He's done a lot of stuff with sci-fi. This is Dan Leckie. He had him on his podcast recently, Subspace Chatter, all kind of goodies. If you go to, and if you want any other Trek-related content, just scroll down. There's all kind of stuff. There's like, the Phaser interview with Barry Eldridge and just tons of sci-fi goodies. We also have a new section that we're about to launch. We've got of course, the shop, but if you want to buy sci-fi merch is there. Interviews in this section. This rotator down here with the featured interviews will be swapped out with some new content here shortly, as well as this featured video. It's got a lot of stuff. We're just churning out content. There's a gentleman I think my wife had met when we were on location at Saturn. All right, security guy, calm down now, buddy. It's my little dog. He's always barking. Sometimes. He's usually quiet. But so the content, he was like amazed. Like, how do y'all churn out so much content? Well, not only do we churn out content, we have a great staff team of writers international from London to Amsterdam to the U.S. and beyond that write all these amazing articles. Like, for instance, this article here on DC's introduced as the most twisted villain. He's an interesting villain, too, for comics. This is done by Queen Anno. She's one of our writers. You've got, let's see, I got this one by Emily. She's amazing. So many great writers, so many great just people involved in the sci-fiction production. But it's just absolutely amazing roller coaster ride of awesomeness. I believe, hold on a second here. Eileen may be joining us here. I don't know if she's doing video or just audio, but we'll have to check and see. We bring her website up here, might help. If everybody's joining us here, my name's Owen C. Cotter. You're joining us here on all of our operating thrusters on SciFiction.com. Give us just a second here. There it is. I love this new system. It's absolutely amazing. Let me do one other little thing here. Show that. We got her title there, not mine. It's her title. It's her show now. And we've got Eileen here. Let's activate her on the digital. She's in the Quantum Leap waiting room right now. And now she should be activated. Let's see.
Hi, Eileen should be joining shortly.
Okay. Well, I'll mute this here, and then we'll bring her on here. So I appreciate you so much. Fans, today is an amazing day. It is March 11th, 2026. Today, I have the honor to talk with Eileen Collins. She'll be joining us shortly. For people that are joining us in the chat, feel free to ask Eileen questions pertaining to her space exploration, all the things she's done. I'll let her tell about the new documentary Space Woman, which is a really cool documentary. We got to preview it last night, and it's coming out or maybe out. I don't know if it's out yet or not. We'll have to find that out. But it is an amazing documentary that goes over her life. This is her website here. If you have not checked out her website, I highly recommend checking it out. It is eileencollins.com. And this is the cover for the documentary. The trailer is also on there as well. It's just a really super inspiring documentary. I really enjoyed watching it. A lot of good content in there. Just absolutely phenomenal. I think Eileen may be on here. Let's see what we get. See. Eileen, how's your day going? Oh, let's see.
And I just
There
said,
she
"Well,
is.
looks like I made it right on time."
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Right on the money. We're talking to the fans about a little about your career and all the goodies that you've done over the years, as well as sci-fi and pop culture and all kind of other goodies. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you and what you're about and what you've done in your career?
Well, actually, I started as a pilot. I started as a civilian pilot flying Cessna 150s when I was 20 years old. And it turned out that was a long time ago, back in 1976.
Okay.
Turns out that the Air Force, the United States Air Force, which had only men pilots at the time, decided that they wanted to test having women fly military aircraft.
Right.
So I was actually part of that test program, and we were sent to various bases. I was with 3 other women at Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma. And as
Okay.
you all know, the women did fine. Women fly just like men, so it's really not a big deal.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that, back, I think after about 3 years or so, the test program was terminated, and they said we can integrate women into flying now. So that's how I got started. And by the way, the same year that I went to Air Force pilot training, 1978, NASA picked their first women astronauts, and they were
Yes.
mission specialists in the space shuttle program.
Mhm. So just got to ask you, what originally inspired you to pursue aviation and eventually join NASA? I mean, is there like a catalyst, a certain thing, or it's kind of said, well, I want to go join NASA?
Well, so it's a little bit different today. You can go online and apply to be an astronaut. But back in
Right.
those days, it was harder. You had to pay attention to what was going on back in those days. So normally, NASA would put out an announcement,
Mhm.
and it was a little bit harder to get that announcement out. Normally, NASA would send it to colleges. They would send it to, looking for students as well as professors to apply. They'd send it to all the military bases like Navy, Air Force, and try to get the message out that way. And for me, as a military officer, I had to apply first to my service. So the Air Force had their own selection board. And so I applied there. The year that I applied, 1990, about 120 names were sent from the Air Force to NASA. And then NASA picked who they wanted to interview from the various military services as well as the civilians. Now, the civilians apply directly to NASA, so NASA gets to see all of them.
Mhm.
And the year that I applied, NASA interviewed 120 people and picked 23 to be part of the astronaut class of 1990. So that's
Okay.
kind of
So
structurally.
you were part of those 23.
I was one of those 23. That's right. In my class of the 23 of us, there were 5 women,
Mhm.
and I was the first woman to be selected as a pilot. There were just so few women pilots in the military back then that there weren't as many women available to pilot the space shuttle. But since then, in the 30 years of the space shuttle program, 3 women have flown as pilots and 2 have flown as commander.
Wow. So you pioneered the legacy, the beginning of all that. We've got test step here. They say, let's go, Eileen, way to lead the way in leadership for women and mankind in space. It's one of the comments from our fans. We've got a lot of questions here and a lot of things. First, I want to go over the documentary, which we previewed last night. It's absolutely phenomenal. Very, very
Oh,
cool.
good.
Yeah, the documentary Space Woman is what it's called. Highlights many milestones in your career. Was there a particular moment in the film that felt especially emotional or personal for you to revisit?
Well, for me, the emotional parts are about the family. I
Hmm.
am not an emotional person. I'm a very military person. I flew military aircraft. It was all about the mission, handling emergencies, going off and doing what the country needs us to do. So I've always been, very, I want to say mission. But I got married
Mhm.
when I was 30 years old, and I had my children. I had my daughter and then my son. And that little
Yeah.
child is like 100% dependent on, my husband, the parents. So that
Right.
was a big change in my life, but probably the best thing I ever did was to have my family because, they're going to be there for me forever, and I'm not
Right.
going to be flying in space forever. I really enjoyed my 4 missions, but so it was hard leaving my family when I went up in space. But there's ways to deal with that, and I think emotionally that part of the movie where you say goodbye to your family, what I did in my head, I knew that we could go into quarantine and the very next day we would scrub and I'd be back home again. So I would just pretend that we were going to scrub the next day and I'd be back home with my family. And that helped me deal with saying goodbye to my husband and kids. The other thing is, once an astronaut goes into quarantine, you're not just hanging around, you're actually working. So
Right.
we still continue to work and train. It's just that we're not exposed to, catching some kind of disease while we're in the last week before launching into space.
Yeah, and you've flown a lot of. I was watching the documentary, and without spoiling anything, you have flown a lot of impressive aviation jets, including the one that's like the one you practice on landing down to the. It was like the one that they taught you how to land before you landed the space shuttle. You go into like some of the different planes and things. There's a lot of aviation people that follow our page. They might be interested in that.
So that airplane you're talking about is a Gulfstream II, which
Yes.
way back in the late 1970s, NASA bought 4 of those, modified them to fly exactly like the space shuttle. So
Uh-huh.
inside the cockpit, the left seat was set up to look just like the cockpit with the stick and the speed brake and all the controls that you would need. The right seat was kept as the seat for a Gulfstream II instructor, so they could
Okay.
taxi it out and climb it up for us.
Mhm.
Now, the plane was modified, I want to say, in the performance characteristics to descend like
Mhm.
the space shuttle.
Okay.
We were able
So
to put the
yeah, go ahead.
engines, we first of all, you'd climb up to, maybe thrust reversers out.
Yes.
You'd put out the speed brake, you'd put the gear down, and you dump the nose, and you're coming down final approach 20 degrees, no engines, and
You're
you're
like diving.
flying. And by the way, you're diving at a target that's 6,700 feet short of the runway because you're aiming short. You've got a lot of energy. We're coming down at 300 miles an hour and modulating the speed brake to control the speed. Of course, you
Mhm.
have no engines to go around, so we had to land on the first try. The other interesting thing about that Gulfstream is the feel of the flight controls that we would call flying qualities. The feel of
Mhm.
the flight controls was modified in the software to fly just like the space shuttle. So when I eventually flew the space shuttle, landed the space shuttle, there were no surprises. It felt like flying the Gulfstream II.
Right. So what I know they reprogrammed the software to mimic the shuttle. We've got a question here from a business owner. Her name's Brooke. What lessons from NASA leadership could apply to leaders in everyday fields in your perspective?
Well, thanks, Brooke, for that question. That is, I could spend an hour talking about that, but let's just, in fact, I actually wrote a speech, wrote a speech on that.
Cool.
There's so much, but let me just narrow it down. Of course, the 3 elements of leadership I learned in the military: know your job and do your job. Secondly, be aware of what the people around you are doing. And the third is maintain your integrity all the time. Integrity meaning not just telling the truth, but trusting that people trust you to tell the truth and not like be off making
Right.
decisions for your own personal interest, but your decisions are made for the good of the mission. So that's kind of I want to say, the foundation. But what I learned after we had that terrible accident with the space shuttle Columbia, and there
Yes.
was so much more I learned
2002, I
about being
believe.
a better
Was it
leader.
2002, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
would
crazy.
say I learned to be a better listener.
Hmm.
It's not about me. One is to be more humble in a way that people are willing to approach me and they're not intimidated by me. And the last one is
Right.
creativity. Um, you don't want to
Hmm.
be too creative in space flight because you don't want to kill yourself doing something weird,
Yeah.
but be creative
Right.
and like you don't always have to do things the way they've always been done, but being willing to try something using good risk management techniques, try something that you think might work better. So that's a very short summary of how and thank you. That's an important
A
question. Thanks
beautiful
for asking
summary.
that.
No problem. I got to ask this question. It's kind of a generic kind of cookie cutter question, but when you first saw Earth from space, what was going through your mind in that moment, and how did it change how you see our planet?
The first thing that went through my mind, the earth is round.
Mhm.
The earth is a sphere. I have had people tell me that the earth is flat. The earth is not flat. I don't know why people, but this, I is a pilot. I'm used to seeing a flat horizon front cockpit every day of flying. And when I first got up in
Right.
space, I looked out and I saw the curvature of the earth.
Yeah.
Beautiful, looked like a rainbow, sun coming up behind our beautiful planet Earth. Ice tourism will be extremely successful because the experience that
Yes.
as a human person and as a human body experiences going up into space, it's just right. Not only do you have the fluid shift, of course, everything's floating. That's takes a while to get used to that.
Right.
But the ability to like put your face up against the window and just stretch out your arms like you're flying over the planet. It's like you're an angel flying over the planet. If you get your face close enough to the window, and now there's a cupola on the space station, so it's even easier. You can just
Right. The
imagine
little
like
window thing.
you're up in a spacecraft flying over,
Mhm.
and the Earth is blue and white. It's a water planet. The atmosphere is extremely thin. It's like an eggshell on an egg, just a couple miles of air that we can breathe. And I think it, and then when you look the other way and you just see the blackness of space, you realize through your own eyes, we live on a tiny little oasis in the middle of this blackness of space. And we haven't found another Earth like planet yet. So I think it's really, it makes me want to, I just love our planet and learn more about it, learn more about the history and how to take care of our planet. So I think it's really, my curiosity about life is just tremendously increased.
Yeah, it's like a Carl Sagan when he did the famous pano back called the Pale Blue Dot, and then he did the whole speech. That was an amazing speech he did. I mean, rest in peace, Carl. But yeah, you got the Planetary
Yeah.
Society
I
and
did
all that.
not go that far. Yeah, I
Well, I said,
remember that. I actually think he actually wrote a book with that title.
yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, like you got all these. It's another question of what we got here. We got a lot of. Let's get some from the fans. We got fans coming in here. So we got here. Oh, he's got a really. I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but it's called Test Step. Um, this one's kind of cool. Let's see where is this one here. Okay, saying goodbye is hard. Shout out to those in uniform that have to do that. I first class of enlisted females in submarines. That's kind of cool. Okay, let's see. This is the question I want to ask you. If you speaking about space tourism, if you had the opportunity to go back to space today, or perhaps even on a mission to the moon or Mars or elsewhere, would you take it?
Yes, I would. I retired from the space shuttle program. Gosh, it's been quite a while ago, but when I retired, the space shuttle only had another 5 years of flying, and there were 50 astronauts that had not even flown one mission yet. So why should I stay and fly a fifth flight when we can get more people an opportunity to fly that have never had the chance? So I retired, thinking in my mind someday, if I keep my health,
Mhm.
you can't be going up into space if you have some kind of serious problem,
Right.
because of the risk of doing that. But keep my health in good shape. And someday, if NASA wants to do a test on a older woman
Hmm.
astronaut, I'll volunteer. Or if I have a chance to fly in the commercial side, which is growing and
Yes.
growing, and something that we as humans need the commercial side of space because that can scale. I mean, there's no limit to that. The government
Right.
missions, for example, with NASA and other countries, are limited by the budget you get from your country. So we really need the commercial side. So I think there's probably more of an opportunity to fly on the commercial side not just for me, but for the listeners here, because I think as the cost comes down and we fly more, the risk will also come down and more people will have a chance to go up, even if it is for a short period of time.
Right. I think that's interesting because I was always like 2001: A Space Odyssey when they go up in that Pan Am thing right, and they go up to the space station. I thought that was really cool. Speaking of science
Yeah.
fiction, it's kind of an interesting question that they threw in here. If you could pilot any fictional spacecraft from science fiction, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, well, I would fly that one that Harrison Ford flew in Star Wars.
Oh, the
I
Falcon.
forgot the
Okay,
name of it. Does anybody remember the name of that one? That was a kind of a cool ship. Um,
Millennium Falcon.
yeah, I mean,
Yes,
all
that's
that is fictional because, like, you don't need wings in space. You need a
right.
winged uh, aircraft when you have air because when you're in an airplane, you use the control surfaces to roll,
Mhm.
pitch, and yaw. But in space, you use those little jets that
Right.
send like puffs of air out to roll, pitch, and yaw. So, frankly, your spacecraft can be any shape at all as long as the jets are in the right place. You can maneuver properly. But I
Did
still
you?
think those Star Wars spacecraft were pretty cool.
Did you watch? Like I mentioned in the documentary, y'all showed a little bit of different sci-fi shows. I think there was like Star Trek in there. Were you a Trekkie? Did you watch the Trek as well? Or?
Oh, I watched so much Star Trek. I started memorizing. So I watched it when they were original. I think I was in fourth grade, uh,
Okay.
fourth, fifth, sixth grade. It came on Friday night at 7:30, and my mother had the TV going. We'd have the popcorn, watched all the shows. Then when I was years later, when I was in graduate school, they had it going on one of those late night channels. So I would watch it every night. I'd watch one of the. There's
Who
some are
was?
better than others. And then
Oh
my
yeah.
husband bought me the DVD set about back when
Okay.
we had DVDs. My husband bought me the whole set of the old Captain Kirk, the original cast with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. It bought me the whole DVD set, and I still have them.
Who was your favorite character in the TOS, the original Star Trek? I just got to ask that. It's kind of one for me on that one. Can you hear me? Hello? There you are.
Of course,
Captain
I
Kirk.
was, like I say in Space Woman, I always wanted to be Captain Kirk. I
Mhm.
thought he was saving his crew,
Yes.
the right thing to say happened. He kept his cool, and his crew, he'd save it. And, it was just, I loved Mr. Spock. What a good character he was. I thought, honestly, Scotty, the engine
Oh,
guy, he had a great personality. And I wanted to be as smart as Scotty. I wanted him to know everything about my space shuttle, just the way Scotty knew everything about his Enterprise spacecraft. And of course, the Dr. McCoy. I mean, the best thing about Star Trek
boy.
was, I mean, the stories, yes, but the characters were just very well done.
Yeah. I just got to ask, like, you talking about characters, you yourself are an inspiration. What advice would you give to young women today who dream of becoming astronauts, pilots, or working in science and in space exploration?
Okay, it depends on the age. So for the
Mhm.
young ones, I say do your homework and listen to your teacher. Now, once you get into middle school and high school, I say sign up to take the tough courses. Do not shy
Okay.
away from math and science because, and I hear a lot of young women say, and men too. Well, actually, I actually hear more women say this than men. If I'm not going to get an A, I don't want to sign up for the course because it'll hurt my grade point average. I disagree with that. I think that you should take the very difficult courses, even if you don't get an A. I mean, maybe you might even get a C or a D, or you might not pass, but give yourself
Mhm.
a challenge. Take the tough. Now, you shouldn't take a course if you're going to fail. Make sure that you are prepared for it, that you have, I want to say the prerequisite for whatever course you take. But take math, take science, take engineering, and then when you go to college, it's very important for an astronaut problems. And that's why NASA requires engineering, math, science, because those disciplines teach you how to solve problems. And even though you may not be taking the derivative of some function, or you may not be, engineering marvel as an astronaut, you train how to identify, I would say, identify problems tools that are required to
Hmm.
solve that problem, put that in the right order, do it with a level head without panicking, without getting frustrated. People with degrees in math, science, and engineering, I think, approach things with a higher level of confidence because of the training. It's nothing against people personally. It's just the training that you get. Now, you may not have a degree in that, but take some of those courses anyway, because I believe those problem techniques come in handy in real life, as well as
For
piloting
sure.
and being a pilot and an astronaut. So
Hmm.
that's the advice I would give.
Well,
Oh, one other thing. I was just
mhm.
going to say, getting along with people is one of the top things that we look at
Yes.
when we hire astronauts. People that can get along with other people. We don't want arguments in space. We don't want people going off doing their own thing. It's all about the mission, the defined mission, and what is your part in that mission, and coming together and working as a team. So that is a very important quality. So I would say work with teams, whatever, if you're in sports, if you're in maybe community activities, or I mean anything that you do, church activities, anything that you do is a group. You can put that on your astronaut application that shows that you have worked with groups, you've held leadership positions and non-leadership positions. You know how to get along with people.
Yeah, I mean, you've done so much. Like, I mean, watching the documentary. Of course, you can Google some of these areas. Like, for instance, you piloted the space shuttle. You had a little issue there late in the early 2000s with like the panel or something like got wedged in between. You had to go up to mirror and had to look down to see the bottom of when you flipped upside down. How was like piloting that and the stuff with the Hubble? Can you talk a little about the docking with Mir space station? I mean, the collaboration with the Russians. Can you go in a little bit about those accolades?
Yeah, so I flew 4 missions, and my first mission was in 1990. 2 years prior to that, while Bill Clinton was president,
Yes.
he decided that he wanted our country to cooperate with the Russians. The Cold War was over, and we needed something to get our relationship built with Russia. Now, they had a very strong space program, and so did we. So we came together, saying that we want to build a international space station led by the
Mhm.
United States, Russia, and then bring in the Europeans, the Canadians, the Japanese, whoever wants to join. So we started with now Mir, MIR. Mir means peace. That is
Mhm.
the Russian space station that was up there till 1999 or 2000.
That's
So
2000.
my first mission, we did a rendezvous, close approach and rendezvous. We didn't have the docking mechanism, so we just tested the flying qualities, the navigation, the communication, the radar. My second mission, we actually docked with Mir. My third mission was deploying a big telescope, the Chandra X-ray Observatory. And then my
Oh, it was
fourth
not the
mission,
Hubble, something else.
no, no. So I went to the Chandra, we actually deployed the Chandra X-ray Observatory. So I did not fly one of the Hubble flights. But
Mm.
remember, there were four great observatories. It started with Hubble, and then there was the Gamma Ray, Compton Gamma Ray Observatory, which that went up in, I believe, 1991.
Something
And
like that.
then the Chandra went up in 1999. They all went up on the space shuttle. And then the fourth one, which was an infrared telescope, went up on an expendable rocket. And let me say, it's cheaper to send these telescopes up on an expendable rocket.
Right.
But when you set them up on the shuttle, it's like buying insurance. It's more expensive, but yet you have an astronaut crew there that can go out and fix anything that's broken. And it happened. The Gamma Ray Observatory, when they were getting ready to deploy it, the high gain antenna did not
Mm.
deploy. So Jerry
Wow.
Ross went on a spacewalk, and all he went out there and all he did was put his hand on that high gain antenna and just give it a little tug, and out it went. So he basically saved 90% of the mission, by having an astronaut who was there that could easily fix it.
That reminds me of
Oh,
Han
you
Solo
know
just smacking the
that.
dash, getting it working again. It's awesome. It's very cool.
Yeah, so the third mission I mentioned, the Chandra
Mhm.
X-ray Observatory deployed. That was my first command, and
Okay.
that's the STS 93 patch,
Mhm.
which shows the shuttle and the Chandra Observatory. And by the way, that was built to last 5 years. It has lasted 25 years, and it is still working. And
Oh,
that
wow.
is a real kudos to the engineers and the operators. They're still operating it today, and it's sending back, it observes X-rays in the universe, and it's teaching us about black holes and pulsars and all these like weird
What
things
do they
out
call
in
it?
the universe. are
Dark
just
matter or something like that? Yeah, yeah. That's
dark
wild stuff.
matter. Yeah, I mean, it's teaching it. And the universe is so big that telescope could be out there for decades and decades and decades, hundreds of years, and there would still be more to look at. That's how big. So scientists have to send their proposal in, and then there's a board that picks like which one of these proposals are we going to pick to aim the telescope at, because there's just not enough time to look at everything. It's pretty fascinating, and how they use big data, which now we call AI. We used to call it big data, but
Mhm.
now basically how they use AI to sift through all of these data. We call them pictures, but it's actually data that comes back. And it's just, we are in a renaissance now in learning
Sure.
about the universe that we live in. And I'm really proud to say that my crew took up that Chandra and we didn't make a mistake. I was so worried that we might break it or something, but we didn't break it, and it's
That's
still
good.
working.
That's awesome. Well, I did get asked this question here was submitted. When you became the first woman to command a space shuttle, did you feel the weight of that historic responsibility in the moment, or did it only hit you possibly later?
Oh, it definitely hit me later. I was not going to let, okay, so my friends who are pilots, women pilots, civilian as well as those in the military, would write to me and say, Eileen, do it for us. Eileen, show them that women can do it. And I'd be like, oh no, that's a lot to think about. So I just kind of discarded that, and I spent, the limited amount of brain power that I have on
Mhm.
focusing on the mission and making sure that my crew was trained for every possible normal or abnormal thing that could happen. We train for malfunctions also. Spent a lot of
Okay.
my time working with flight directors, the engineers, the Chandra astronomers. We spent not a lot, but a little bit of time with them because we wanted to be able to talk about their mission and what they were going to learn. And so I think I was so focused on my job that I didn't really think about the historical aspect of the flight. It
Right.
finally hit me when I was at Kennedy Space Center talking to a group of women, there were about 8 of them, and one of
Hmm.
them said to me, "Thank you for what you're doing, because now the guys have more respect for us
That's
because
good.
there's a woman shuttle commander." And I thought, well, I never thought of it that way. But um, so I think as I look back, I'm really happy that NASA had a woman commander. There were 2 of us, myself and Pam Melroy.
Yes.
And the fact that, like, you're not going to have 50-50, in men and women. I don't think that should be a goal. I think the important thing is women have the opportunity to do these things,
For sure.
and we do now. When I was a child, we didn't have the opportunity, but now we do. So it's, people can pick what they want to do with their life, and that's great.
Right. There's two questions here. One just came in on the board. I've got another one to ask you here pertaining to that. Um, Many people see astronauts as heroes. Who were the people in your life that inspired you or supported you the most along the way?
Well, I'll give you 2 answers. The first is my parents, because
Okay.
my dad always said to me, be a leader. And he would get mad at me when I just did things that my friends were doing, and he'd say, like, stop following the crowd. Don't do things just because other people are doing them. Like, if all your friends jumped off the Walnut Street Bridge, would you jump off the Walnut Street Bridge? So I got that from my dad. So my dad taught me to, think about, like, what do you think is right? What do you want to do? And my mother would tell me, this is really interesting. She would say, isn't it amazing that every person in the world is different?
Yes.
Every person is an individual, and we all have our own talents. And they would say things to me like that actually were kind of leadership uh, phrases, or, like preparing me to someday take on a leadership role. So my parents were my role models. But often I'm asked that, no, what about people that are not in your family? And I
Right.
say it because with the women who flew, in the men too, like, I read way more books about male pilots because there were just so many of them. I read about, like, Eddie Rickenbacker flew in World War One.
Hmm.
I read about the Flying Tigers in World War Two, a book by Robert Scott. And of course, I read about the women Air Force Service pilots. So I'd say all those pilots that went before me, um, I would read about what they did and their adventures, and the ones that flew around the world, and they, like, oh, I think I'll fly to see what that looks like over there.
Right.
And so I kind of see myself as an explorer. So I would say the early pilots, as well as I mentioned earlier, the Mercury and Gemini astronauts and the Apollo astronauts were all my role models. And they were role models for so many people. 12 men walked on the moon, and only
Yeah.
4 of them are alive today. And,
Yeah.
they're all still my role models. I look at what they did after they retired, and, so they still inspire me in many different ways.
Yeah, I was just so like talking about like the original Apollo, Mercury, Gemini astronauts, the right stuff. And my grandfather, he ended up getting up to the rank of colonel. He was at Redstone Arsenal. All those Apollo astronauts used to hang out at his house, coming in their Corvettes they got for $1. But I was going to ask, yeah, he's got some stories. But he passed away, but he's a good guy. I got to ask Brooke here. She has a question. There's a few others here too, but she says, "Does it affect your spiritual walk, seeing the grander view of things?" It's an interesting question.
Yes, I do think there's definitely a spiritual aspect of space. God created the universe, and we
Yes.
we know from the Big Bang, and that's what we know scientifically. But there is so much that we don't know, and there's so much mystery. I just say I like to use the word mystery, or maybe even magical. Like some of the things that we learn about space, you're like, whoa, that just blows my mind. And so I think there is a spiritual aspect of flying into space. I found myself praying a lot before my missions because we are taking a certain amount of risk. I think that the risk that we took was a calculated risk. I
Mhm.
always looked at our risk management, I'm going to say, studies that we did. We used probabilistic risk management, and I always knew it was safe to go. But yet there's always something that can happen. And I found myself, yes, getting spiritual and reading books about, I want to just say, spiritual things
Mhm.
in the time that I had, which wasn't a lot, before I flew. And I would definitely pray. Uh, and I would definitely pray for my astronaut friends when they went up on their missions, that, God, please keep them safe. But I also think that by going to space, some people say if God wanted us to explore the universe, he'd give us a moon. He'd give
Right.
us a moon as a stepping stone. Well, there's the moon. So I think that we, as humans, part of
Mhm.
our nature is we're explorers. That's what God made us to be. We're curious, we're explorers. And so get out there and get out of your house and get off your butt and go out and learn about the world. So
That's
that's
right.
kind of the way I see it. I wouldn't say that I'm an overly religious person, but I would say that I am a religious person.
That's good. Well, Brooke says she leveled up in my book with that answer. Love that. That's awesome. You got some other questions here. One was submitted. This is interesting, kind of this is a bonus question we got here. See, where is this? Here's a bonus question. There's an extra one we had added to the list. Um, see, there's that. Oh, here it is. A lot of questions. Looking at how far space exploration has come from the space shuttle era to the new missions planned by NASA and other programs, what excites you the most about the future of human spaceflight, and what message would you like to leave for the next generation of explorers?
Well, what excites me the most is humans on Mars. That's
Mhm.
the ultimate realistic goal that we have is humans on Mars. The reason we have the Artemis program in this country, and Artemis is obviously an international program because we have Canada, Japan, we have the Europeans. But Artemis, this is the way Eileen would describe it. We are going to the moon, we're going to land on the moon for the purpose of testing the equipment to make sure that it works and it is reliable. The moon is only 3 days away. We can
Right.
launch spare parts if we need to. Mars is at least 6 months. It might be 2 years if the planets are not aligned. If something breaks on Mars, you could die. If your
Right.
carbon dioxide removal, your oxygen generation, your water recycling, go name it. If
Mhm.
anything, you could die on Mars because it's so far away. That is the challenge. So we are going to the moon to test the life support equipment as well as the habitat and the other things, make sure it's reliable. So that's my first answer. My second answer is has to do with propulsion. Now, first, I'm not a propulsion expert, but I mentioned it takes 6 months to get to Mars using chemical propulsion. If the planets are on opposite sides of the sun, Earth and Mars, it's 2 years. Okay, that's unacceptable. You cannot have humans in a little capsule for 2 years because it's a huge waste of time. and it's also not healthy. So we need to find a faster way to travel. If we are ever going to leave our solar system, which I believe humans will figure out someday, we have got to find a revolutionary means of propulsion that is different. I mean, the stuff we're talking about today is good, but we have to find like warp drive. What is
Yeah.
that? And I think that probably not in my lifetime, but I think someday people will figure out how to travel other places in the galaxy. And it's going to be something that we can only conceive of today, and that we really reread about in our sci-fi books. It will be invented someday, but we're not there yet.
Right.
So that's
And
what excites me.
it's amazing, and it's fascinating. You got. I was also like brought up something that just came to mind, like the exoplanets and all these planets they see out there that they've scanned. And there's just tons of them, and maybe there's some Earth and like ones like Earth. But before we end the broadcast, I want to ask you a question. The documentary Space Woman, we got the preview. It's absolutely amazing. Highly recommend checking out. When does it come out, and where can people find it?
Yeah, well, the trailer is out, so 2 minutes long, so you can just go to YouTube and type in Space Woman trailer.
Yes.
It will go to streaming hopefully this summer, but right now it
Okay.
is in a theatrical release. So we're going to be in New York City next week. They're showing, I think, 5 days, and it's showing right now. We've got it in 14 cities around the country. It's going to be in Chicago, Houston. It's going to be down in Melbourne for the Space Coast, Columbus, Ohio, in some smaller cities. I can't go to all of them. It's just not physically
A
possible.
lot of
So
travel.
it's a lot of travel, but I'm myself, as well as my producer Keith Haviland and director Hannah Berryman, will be doing Q&A after the film at some of these places, and I think he's got them posted on our website. But it will be streaming eventually. But I think we have to exhaust the theatrical release. It's already been through film festivals, and
Mhm.
you can have it go to your college or your corporation. So I've been visiting different museums around the country, and they'll show Space Woman, and I'll do a Q&A after. So people like it. I had a guy come up to me. So we did one last week in upstate New York, and a man came up to me afterwards and said, I cried through the whole thing. I mean, this
Wow.
guy's like my age, and he said, I cried through the whole thing. So there is some, I'm going to say, family issues. The music is kind of emotional. So I think it's these expert filmmakers did a great job with it. I just interviewed for it. So I'm really proud of the job they did on Space Woman.
Yeah, we got a little article we put together for you about the film here by one of our senior contributors, Kieran, out of London. He does amazing work, by the way. It's called Space Woman documentary releasing in the U.S. There's the trailer there. Goes over the interviews and everything that's featured in the documentary. I want to thank you, Eileen, for joining us on this project. This has been an absolute in-depth pleasure to have you on here.
Well, thank you for asking me. And I think I relate a lot to your audience. I'm a big sci-fi fan. I read all these sci-fi books, mostly Isaac Asimov when I was a kid, and others that I don't check the books out of the library. But I tell young people to read sci-fi because it is so good for your imagination. It's good for your creativity. And I just really promote reading books nowadays because we're on our phones too much. We need to get back to books.
For
But
sure. I
thank you
want to
thank you for the interview.
No problem. Thank you for envisioning a positive future. We want to thank our fans as well for joining in on this broadcast. There's a lot of them. This guy says his name's Aaron. He said he completed the Kessel Run, I guess in a submarine. That's pretty darn cool. Well, thank you so much, Eileen. Hope you
Good
have a
for you.
beautiful day, and good luck with the Space Woman documentary. Peace.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.